Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia, and today I'm going to talk about prepositions of time. I'm going to talk about a few prepositions we use when we're talking about time and time periods. So let's get started. Okay, so the first preposition of time I want to talk about is on. We use on for days, for example, on Sunday, on Monday, on Tuesday. And we use on for the weekend, like on the weekend or on weekends. These are the two cases where we use on as a preposition of time. I like to something something on Sunday. I like to something something on weekends. We use on in these two cases. The second preposition of time I want to talk about for today is at. So we use at when we want to talk about a time, and by time I mean o'clock, like 7 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock. We can also use at with AM and PM, like at 2 a.m., at 7 p.m. We use at to talk about a specific point in time, a specific number, for example. We also use at with the expression at night, at night. I like to something something at night. I usually something something at night. We always use at in this case. Then I have one more here, the weekend. You'll see I used the weekend for on here, but in British English, I speak American English. In British English, you might hear at the weekend instead of on the weekend. So at the weekend is something you might hear depending on where you are or depending on the people with whom you study. But for me, I prefer to use on the weekend. Okay, let's talk about in next. So we use in for a lot of different cases, as you can see. We use in for months, like in September, in October, in November. We use it for seasons, like in summer, in spring, in fall. We use it for expressions like in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon as well. In the morning, in the afternoon. We also use in for periods of time, so minutes, hours, and years, for example. So in 5 minutes, in 3 years, in a few seconds. If you want to talk about a period of time, you can use in to explain that. So we use in for a lot of different cases. The last thing I want to talk about, though, is a situation where you don't need to use a preposition at all. When you use this plus weekend, like this weekend, or this morning, or this evening, or this month, this September, this October, you do not need to use a preposition in this case. We'll practice in just a moment, but this is a very common mistake. If you use this before one of these expressions, you do not need to include a preposition, so please be careful. Okay, so with this information, I want to try a few example sentences that I've prepared here. The first one is, I have to leave something something 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a period of time, so we know the correct preposition is in. I have to leave in 5 minutes is the correct answer here. Next, what are you doing? Something something. December, December. So we know December is a month. We should use in this case. What are you doing in December? Of course, by the way, with this sentence, we could say, what are you doing this December, to be very specific. But in this case, for a preposition, we should use in. Okay, next sentence. I'll meet you at the restaurant 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is a time, So we know that we should use at. At 6 p.m., at 6 p.m. Okay, next, your plane leaves something something 2 hours. So 2 hours, again, is a period of time, Therefore, we should use in. Your plane leaves in 2 hours is the correct sentence here. Okay, next, they're going to France something something this summer. Here is a big hint word, this, therefore no preposition is needed in this case. They're going to France this summer, no preposition here. Okay, next, He's meeting us in the station something something noon. So noon, I've used the word noon here, but noon is a time. It means 12 p.m., yeah? So because it's still a time, we should use at. At noon is the correct sentence here. Okay, next. Can you meet me at the cafe something something 2 p.m.? So 2 p.m., here we have another time. At 2 p.m. is the correct answer here. Okay, next. I like going hiking something something weekends. Weekend. So we learned over here that we use on to talk about weekends. Weekends, in this case, multiple weekends. So I like going hiking on weekends is the correct answer in this case. Finally, it's hard for me to wake up something something the morning. The morning. So we saw here morning is used with in. So in the morning is the correct answer for this sentence. So with a little bit of practice, and as you use these phrases, not just with a single preposition, but as you use these in longer sentences and as part of phrases, it will become easier to remember which is which and which one you should use at which time. So I hope this was useful for you. Thanks very much for watching this episode. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know in a comment below this video. Thanks very much for watching and see you again soon. Bye! Today we're going to talk about prepositions of location and movement. So let's get started. Okay, so the first preposition of location I want to talk about is at. We use at to talk about exact, specific locations. So some examples of this are at the supermarket, at the table, at her desk. This means a person or an object is at that specific place. So for example, I'm at work right now. I'm at the office. These are specific points where people or objects can be located. So please use at to talk about a specific location. Okay, so let's go on to the next preposition of location for now. In. We use in when we want to talk about enclosed locations, so locations which are surrounded or when we're surrounded by something else. Something else is all around us, or we are enclosed within something. So some examples of this are in the pool, we are enclosed or surrounded by the pool. In the closet, completely enclosed by the closet. In your bag, your items are enclosed by your bag. And in the water. So when swimming in the ocean, for example, we say in the water. I'm in the water. For example, now I'm in the office. I'm in a room. I'm in my home city, for example. So these are different ways we can use the word in when we are enclosed or surrounded by something. Please also remember that in is used for countries and cities. I live in Bangkok. I live in Europe, for example. So please remember to use in for countries and cities, as well as for locations that are enclosed or when you're surrounded by something else. Okay, so let's talk about the next preposition of location. The next preposition is by. We use by when we want to express something is near something else, near or close to something else. So for example, by the park or by the coffee shop, by your computer, by the table. These mean near something else. We don't know exactly, is it maybe next to, in front of, behind? We don't know, but it means simply near something else. So for example, I'm by the whiteboard right now. I'm by a chair. I'm by a table. These are ways we can use by to express near or close to. Okay, so the next preposition I want to talk about is a preposition of movement. Actually, the next two are prepositions of movement. The first one is into. So into is something we use to express movement from an open location to a more closed location. So for example, into the bank, walk into the bank, or into the refrigerator, put food into the refrigerator. Or into the suspect's home. The police moved into the suspect's home. In each case, into shows moving from an open location to a more closed location. So because in is here, you can imagine We are moving to an enclosed location. We could say, jump into the pool, for example, or go into the closet, put something into your bag, or go into the water. So in this way, we can kind of think of in and to being closely related, but to shows us the movement, the relationship, that there's some movement happening there. Okay. So let's talk about the opposite then of into, which is out of. So because we use into to talk about movement from a more open place to an enclosed space, out of is used to talk about movement from an enclosed space to a more open space. So for example, out of the house or out of the washing machine, taking clothes out of the washing machine. Out of your purse, take something out of your purse. So moving yourself, moving a person, or moving an object from something that is enclosed to a space that is more open. We use out of in this case. Okay, so now we know about 5 new prepositions of location and movement. Let's try some example sentences. Okay. The first one, she's sitting something something, the table. So here we have the table. I talked earlier about this, at the table, with at, yeah? However, we can use by the table as well. At the table and by the table have slightly different meanings though. Both are correct. At the table means she is sitting in a chair directly in front of the table. She's sitting at the table. By the table, however, could mean she's next to the table or she's just near the table. By is a little bit less clear. At is very clear here. To be very clear, say she's sitting at the table. To be less clear, maybe she's somewhere near the table, use by. Okay, so the next example sentence is, our company's headquarters is something something LA. LA meaning Los Angeles here. So we have a city name, yeah? A city name, Los Angeles. We know that we should use city names with in. So the answer here is in LA. Okay. The next one, he lives something something, the supermarket. So the supermarket is a place, and here we have the verb lives. He lives. We know it's not in because people do not live in supermarkets. Probably not at. He lives at the supermarket. Also doesn't make any sense. People do not live at supermarkets. However, we can use by. So he lives by the supermarket to mean he lives near the supermarket. Okay, so next one. When we walked something something, the bank, it was raining. Okay, so here we have the verb walked. And we have the bank. So there's a motion happening, yeah? Walking, and then the bank. The preposition we should use here is probably into, though out of could also be possible. When we walked into the bank, it was raining. When we walked out of the bank, it was raining. Both sentences are okay in this case. It just depends on the action you want to communicate. Okay. Next one, I need to run something something, the supermarket for milk. Okay, so here there's an objective for milk. This person wants to buy milk, so they need to run something something, the supermarket. So let's use into, moving from outside the supermarket to inside the supermarket, a more enclosed space, into the supermarket. Okay, next one is I have to be something something, the office until 6 p.m. So here we have a specific location, the office. So office is an enclosed space, yes, which means we can use in. I have to be in the office until 6 p.m. But with work and with office spaces, we can also use at. It's an exact location. I have to be in the office or I have to be at the office until 6 p.m. Both are correct here. Okay, next, I forgot to take my phone, something something, your bag. Okay, so take, this take motion here is a really good hint. There's an action happening. So there's a very good chance we are moving something from an enclosed location to a more open location. So I forgot to take my phone out of your bag. Out of your bag is the correct answer here. Finally, I want to get something something, town. So town is, yes, it's a location, like in my town or at my town. However, A big hint here is get. Get. We use get to reflect movement sometimes. And this phrase is a good one to remember. Get out of town. Get out of town. So get out of town means leave town. Go to a different place outside of town. So I want to get out of town is the correct answer here. Okay, so those are a few prepositions of location and movement. I hope that this was useful for you. If you have any questions, please be sure to leave them in a comment below this video. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and we will see you again soon. Bye!
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Today I'm going to talk about say, tell, and speak. I'm going to talk about the differences between when we use these and also give some examples of how to use them as well. So let's go. Okay, the first one I want to talk about is say. Say. So we use say when we want to have a very neutral feel to what we're talking about. We use say when we report speech. We're reporting information, reporting something we heard, reporting something someone else said to us. So, as I just used, the past tense of say is said. Please be careful. It is not say-ed, say-ed. It should be said. The spelling changes. Said. He said, she said, we said, they said. Okay, so when we want to report speech, we can use the past tense like I've just done. For example, he said dinner was delicious. This is a past tense statement, so maybe previously, before the conversation, someone, he, said this statement, dinner was delicious. Think of this like a quote. Dinner was delicious. He said dinner was delicious. Another example, you said you were tired. You said you were tired. So again, before the conversation, the other person said he or she was tired. But here, to report, you said you were tired. And we use the past tense say, said, to do that. Okay, one more with the present tense then. Remember, we use the present tense when we're talking about general facts or things which are always true, regular actions. So in this case, I've used present tense. I said, I never say mean things. So here I have present tense. This is a general fact in this case. I never say mean things. So again, a very neutral way of talking about verbal communication. Okay, so that's how we use say, an introduction to how we use say. Then let's talk about how to use tell. We use tell a little bit differently from the way that we use say. So we use tell when we want to show kind of a one-way nuance. There's sort of one-way communication happening. So by that I mean that someone is passing new information or giving new information to another person. Something I do not already know, I'm having someone tell me. Someone is going to tell me new information. So we use this in past tense a lot. The past tense of tell is told. He told me, she told me, they told me. This gives us the nuance of new information, something I'm learning, something I'm hearing for the first time. I can use tell or told in past tense. Also, one point about tell. The object, in many cases, is a person. So by that I mean after the verb tell, the item coming after it in the sentence is usually a person. So the person receiving the information. So please tell me, please tell her, please tell him. The person indicated here, or the group of people indicated here after the verb tell, that's the person or the group of people receiving the information, learning the information. Okay? So let's see. I told you to call me. Here I have the past tense. I told you to call me. So you, this is the receiver of the information. I told you to call me. I asked you to call me here. Okay, so this is the report, some command. We can use tell and told to give commands. I told you to call me. I gave you the new request to call me, in other words. Okay, one more, a request this time. Can you tell me where the bathroom is? So here, tell me. So this is a request for information. Can you tell me where the bathroom is? I don't know where the bathroom is. Please give me new information. Please tell me where it is. Okay, here we also use present tense, yeah? So when you're making requests, please make sure to use the present tense. Can you tell me something? One more. Why didn't you tell me the party was canceled? Another question. Why didn't you tell me? So you didn't give me new information about the party. Why? Why didn't you tell me? Blah, blah, blah. We can use this pattern for if you miss information, or if someone forgot to tell you something, if someone forgot to give you information that you needed, you can say, why didn't you tell me? Blah, blah, blah. To make a different sentence, you could say, why didn't you tell her? Or why didn't you tell them? Why didn't you tell our boss? Some other examples, a positive sentence could be, why did you tell him? Why did you tell her? For example, if someone tells a secret. So we can use tell to give new information, to pass new information along. Okay, so that's tell. So the next verb that I want to talk about today is the verb speak. So we use speak to mean a conversation, yes. So speak has the nuance of a conversation, but it has the nuance of a more formal tone. We would use speak in more formal situations, like a business meeting or a work setting, for example, or for maybe a more serious conversation. But we can use speak with either with or to. So I mean speak with someone and speak to someone. So the difference between these two is very, very small. If you say speak with my boss, it sounds like you expect a conversation with your boss. Speaking with someone sounds like there's information passing back and forth between the two of you. Speak to your boss sounds more like, for example, you're going to say a lot of things, you're going to give a lot of information, and your boss will participate a little bit, but there's more nuance of giving information than passing information back and forth. So if you want to make a more conversational nuance, use with. Speak with someone. If you want it to sound a little more one-sided, a little more one way, use speak to someone. Okay. So we also use speak for languages, like I speak English, I speak French, I speak Japanese, I don't speak German, I don't speak Thai. So please use speak for languages as well. The past tense of speak is spoke. Please be careful. It is not speaked. Please use spoke. The past tense is spoke. I spoke English every day when I lived in America, for example. So please use spoke as the past tense here. Also, the past participle form is spoken. Spoken. So we'll see that in a little bit, maybe. Okay. So some example sentences. You should speak with or to your boss. So here you can choose. With sounds more conversational. To sounds a little more direct. You should speak with your boss. You should speak to your boss. Okay. Past tense sentence. I spoke with my manager. I spoke with my manager. We shared information. Last, have you spoken to HR? Have you spoken to HR? Here's a present perfect tense sentence. I've used spoken here. Okay. Good. So that's a nice maybe wrap up of a few different verbs that are commonly confused when talking about speech. Let's go to some example sentences. All right. The first example sentence is, my friend something something me, my cooking was bad. Okay, my cooking was bad. This is probably new information for a person. Another hint, we have me. There's a person here in the object position of the sentence. So we can guess that this should be the verb tell. However, we have this hint. My cooking was bad, a past tense. So we should use the past tense form of tell, told here. Okay, next one. They something something, I have to work tomorrow. So here, I have to work tomorrow. This is maybe just information. It sounds like somebody passed some information to me. So if I want to think of this as like reporting speech, I would use the verb say in the past tense, said. So I know this should not be tell because there's no object here. I know it should not be speak because there's no with and there's no to here either. So I know this should be, they said I have to work tomorrow. Of course, this sentence could be, they told me I have to work tomorrow. It sounds more like a command in that case. Here, they said I have to work tomorrow is very neutral and just a simple report of speech. Okay, next one. He really needs to something something with his client. So here is a big hint word. We have the word with here, and we also have client here, which shows maybe a business or a work setting. Therefore, we can guess the verb should be speak. He really needs to speak with his client. Okay, great. Next one, have you something something, your mother, the news, the news. So here, news is a big hint, new information, new information. And we have a person in the object position. A person is going to receive new information. So, have you told your mother the news is the correct sentence here. So have you told blah, blah, blah is actually a really good sentence for you to remember. Have you told your mom about that? Have you told your dad about that? Have you told your dog about your new park? I don't know. So anytime you want to pass information or ask a question about information being passed, please use tell to do that like we've done here. Have you told someone? Okay, let's go to the next one. We something about this at the last meeting. So again, meeting here is a big hint that it is a work or a more formal situation. We see that this is the last meeting, so something that has finished already. So let's use past tense spoke. We spoke about this at the last meeting. We spoke about this at the last meeting. Here, I have introduced something slightly different from this speak with or speak to. If you want to mention a topic rather than about a person, we can use speak about a topic, speak about something. We spoke about this at the last meeting. We can use speak to introduce a topic as well. So please note that this is an option. Okay, let's go to the next one. You always, blah, 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 nice things, nice things. So always here I have a word which indicates a regular action, something that is always true. We talked about an example over here, though I used never here. However, the grammar is still the same. We should still use the same grammar nuance, the same grammar point here. So let's use the present tense say. You always say nice things. So someone always says positive things, or someone always makes very positive comments. Like for example, everybody in the comments on these videos, everybody always says very nice things. We can use always say to talk about something that a person always says. Okay, finally, same thing, he always something something, the truth. Okay, now this is tricky. I've used always here. I used always in the previous one as well. But the thing I want to point out is this, the truth, at the end of the sentence. There's a set phrase in English. We don't use say. We actually use tell with the expression the truth. He always tells the truth. So the expressions tell the truth and the opposite, tell a lie. We always use the verb tell with this. You might hear, I sometimes hear non-native speakers of English say a lie or say the truth, but this is not natural. Please be sure to use tell the truth or tell a lie. We always use tell in these cases, so please be careful of that. Okay, but we've talked about a lot of different ways to use these three verbs, and I hope that it's a little bit more clear now when to use them, especially say and tell. Many people have a little bit of confusion between these two, but speak is also quite useful as well. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia, and today I'm going to talk about the difference between some and any. So let's get started. Okay, the first point I want to talk about with some and any is how to use some and any in terms of where to put these two words in a sentence. So we use some and any in the same position in a sentence. We use some and any before the noun or before a noun phrase. So please be careful. Don't use some or any after the noun. You should be using some and any before the noun. Okay. So, given this, let's take a look at how to decide whether you should use some or you should use any in your sentence. All right, first I want to talk about some. We use some in positive statements. So these are statements that do not have a negative in them. We use them for positive statements. A few examples here are, I need some butter. Here, some is before the noun. In the next one, we have some food. Some comes before the word food, the noun, a positive statement. Third, they had some good ideas. So good ideas is used as a noun phrase here. Good ideas. Some comes before that noun phrase. So these are a few examples of positive statements. We can use some in positive statements. That's the first point I want to make. Second point I want to make is here, it's about requests. We use some in a couple of different question patterns. One of them is making requests. When we want to make requests, we can use some in the request. For example, can I have some time off? We use some here because it's a request. Making a request to your boss, for example, in this case, we should use some. Can I have some time off? Second, will you give me some space? Will you give me space? This is another request. We can tell, will you give me? This is a very good hint that someone is asking for something else. A request should use some. Finally, can he take care of some things for me? Can he take care of some things for me? In this case, it's asking for someone's help in a situation. So it's a request. We should use the word some. Great. Okay, so the second point I want to talk about is using some for offers. To make offers, we should use some. Again, offers, like requests, are a question. This is a question pattern where we should use the word some to make the question. So in the first example, would you like some wine? We use some here in the pattern, would you like? This is a really good pattern to know. Would you like some blah, blah, blah? Would you like some wine? Would you like some beer? Would you like some, a few other things we'll see in just a moment. But we should use some here because it's an offer type question. One more example. Do you want some cheese? So these two patterns, would you like and do you want, they really are expressing the same thing. The difference is in the level of formality. Would you like is more formal than do you want. These two questions really, they have the same point. They're offering something, but the level of formality is what's different here. Okay. Last one, do you want some more time? Do you want some more time? So here again, an offer, a more casual offer with do you want? And again, we have some plus more time. So please make sure to use some before the noun or before the noun phrase and use it in your offer questions as well as your request questions. So those are the two types of questions I want to talk about today when we're using some. Also, please remember we use it in positive statements as well. Okay, so with that, let's continue on to any. I want to talk about any next. Any is sort of the opposite in terms of statement making from some. We use any in negative statements. So for example, I don't have any money. Here I have don't, do not, the negative here. I don't have any money, therefore, is correct. We should use any in a negative statement. Another example, they didn't get any new clothes. They didn't, again, here's our negative, they didn't, did not, so we should use any before our noun phrase, which is new clothes here. Finally, we didn't make any cookies. Here, didn't is in the negative form, again, a past tense statement, plus any before our noun here, in this case, cookies. So please use any when you want to make a negative statement. Okay, the last point I want to make today is about questions. We use any with questions, yes, but we do not use any in requests and offers. We just learned that we use some to make requests and offers. So in other questions, like information questions, asking for information, not for a request, not for an offer, but asking for information, for example, we use any in these cases. So let's take a look at the first sentence. Do we need any salt? So this is an information question. Yes or no? Do we need any salt? We should use this here. This is not a request. This is not an offer. So any is the best choice for this sentence. In the next example, we have, does he have any markers? Again, this is an information question. The person speaking is asking for information, not making a request and not making an offer. So we should use any here. Okay, so the final example here is, did she give you any tips? So our noun phrase here is tips. Any comes before that, and we notice also this is not a request, this is not an offer, so we should use any. It's an information question. We're asking for information. So let's keep this in mind. We use any for questions which are not requests and not offers. Think about it as asking for information only. You're not making a request for help, not making a request for an item, but if you're looking for information, you should probably use any to make your question. Okay, so let's take a look at a few example sentences that I've prepared. The first one here is, do we have blah 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 milk? So here I'm looking for information. I'm not making a request, I'm not making an offer, I want information, so I should use any in this case. Do we have any milk is the correct sentence here. The next one, can I have blah 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 cake? Here, I'm looking for something. I'm looking for cake. I want cake. I'm making a request. I know that requests are paired with some, so I'm going to use some in this sentence. Can I have some cake is the correct sentence, the correct question. The next one, I really need something something money. I really need something something money. So this is a statement, not a question, and there's no negative here. So we should use the positive some. I really need some money is the correct sentence here. All right, let's take a look at the next sentence. I don't have blah 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 pets. Here is a negative, and we see this is not a question, so we know we should use any because we use any for negative statements. This don't, do not shows us that we should use any here. Okay, next one. Do you want something something pizza? So here we have a question. And it looks like this is an offer. So there's this do you want pattern, which we talked about right here. Do you want? So we should use some. This is an offer question. Do you want some pizza? Making an offer, you should use some. Next sentence. Wanna get blah, blah, blah food after work? Again, we have a question. And we have this pattern, wanna get, wanna get. This is a very, very casual form of do you want to get? Do you want to get? We've dropped do you want to, and we use the very casual wanna here. So it's again an offer question. Wanna get some food after work? Okay. Next sentence, he doesn't have blah 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 friends. So a statement, yes, but we see a negative here. Doesn't or does not is the negative form. So we know that we should use any in this pattern, in this sentence. He doesn't have any friends. Okay, final question here. Maybe a difficult one. Are you sure you don't want dessert? Are you sure you don't want dessert? So this isn't quite an offer. It's like a very, very soft offer, yes. But this person is sort of asking for information. Are you sure you don't want dessert? They're asking for a yes or no, kind of. And there's a negative here. There's a negative don't, a do not. So it's a good idea in this sentence to use any. Are you sure you don't want any dessert? This sounds a little bit negative. You sure you don't want any dessert? If you want to make a straightforward offer, like would you like some dessert? That's okay. It sounds a little bit better because there's a negative here with don't to use any in this sentence. This is a little bit tricky, but I think it's okay to use. All right, so those are a few basic points about when to use some and when to use any. Please remember, some is used for positive statements, requests, and offers. Any is used for negative statements and questions which are not requests or offers, like information questions.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia, and today I'm going to talk about the difference between for and since. I'm also going to talk about how to use ago. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the word for. we use the word for before a period of time. So before a period of time can mean minutes, it can mean years, it can mean days, seconds, hours, a period of time or a length of time. We use the word for before that phrase to talk about the length of time that something happens. So for example, for 10 minutes, we use it before 10 minutes. For 5 years is a length of time. For a day is also a length of time. For a lifetime, one whole lifetime, a person's whole lifetime can be a period of time. We use for before it in this case. There's also for an eternity. An eternity. We can use this to mean a very, very long time. It's sort of an exaggerated phrase, but for an eternity means a very, very long time. These are all lengths of time then, and we should use the word for before we want to express them. Okay, so let's talk about something a little bit different then, the word since. Since is used before a specific point in the past. We often use since with present perfect tense. Maybe you've seen another video that we did about the present perfect tense and how to make present perfect tense sentences. We often use since in present perfect tense sentences. For is also used in present perfect tense sentences, but the two are used a little bit differently. Since is used to talk about a specific point in the past, a specific point in the past, maybe where something happened or something began. So, for example, since last night. This shows us that since last night something happened or something started and it's continuing. So since shows us that something has been continuing or the effect has been continuing since a point in the past. It began at a point in the past and continues, or the effect continues until the present. Since tells us all this information. Another example, since 2014. So this is the point in time. 2014 is the year at which something changed or an action started or the effect of an action began. So we can use since in this case. Another point in time can be a season, like winter, since summer, since autumn. We can use since before a season. We also have points in time in the day, since this morning, since this evening, since last night was my first example here. We can also use morning, this morning, today, as a point in time. Finally, I have one more example, since last week. So points in time, there are a lot of different points in time, but just be careful. Length of time uses for. Point in time uses since, and since shows us that there's some action that's continuing or the effect of some action continues until the present. So please be careful. Period of time, point in time, for and since. Okay, so the next point that I want to talk about is ago. There are a couple of different ways that we can use ago, and the first one I want to talk about is one we use for past tense statements or past tense situations. So we use ago to talk about points in time where actions or changes occurred. So for example, 3 years ago I got a new job, or 5 minutes ago I ate lunch, or 2 days ago I saw my friend, or 2 jobs ago I didn't have much experience. So all of these statements are used to talk about a past tense point in time where something changed or some action occurred. So we use ago in this way with the past tense to mark a change or something happening. So there's a second use of ago that I want to talk about. We can use ago with since and a time period. This is something we often use in present perfect tense statements, like we talked about here with since. What I mean by that, for example, is since plus time period plus ago. So for example, since 3 years ago, or since 5 minutes ago, or since 2 months ago. So here you'll see we're using a time period. I know I said to use time periods with for, but this can be kind of a useful pattern because if you use the word since on accident, but you want to express a time period instead, you can save yourself by adding ago to the end of it. So if you're working on making a sentence, for example, and you're speaking and you accidentally use the word since, even though you know you want to use a time period, save yourself by attaching ago to the end. So since 3 years ago, something has occurred, something has been continuing. So because since is here, it shows us, like we talked about with since here, the action or some effect of that action is continuing from this point in time. So we can use this pattern as well. Since time period ago. Okay, so this is a lot of information. Let's try to make a few sentences. I've prepared a few example sentences, so let's take a look. All right, the first one, we've lived here, blah, 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 3 years. So how do we know which to use? First, we see we have lived here. This is a present perfect tense sentence. We've lived here plus 3 years. So I see a time period here. That means I should use for, because we need to use for before periods of time. So we've lived here for 3 years is the correct sentence. Good. Okay, let's look at the next one then. They've been studying, blah, 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 2014. So here I see a point in time, a specific point in time. And another really good hint is the grammar here. I see the present perfect progressive, or the present perfect continuous tense here. They've, meaning they have, plus been studying. This shows a continuing action. So all of these give me hints about which one I should use. They've been studying since 2014 is the correct answer here. Next one, he left the office 5 minutes something something. Okay, here we see this is a past tense statement. He left. So left is the past tense form of the verb to leave. So we see here a period of time. 5 minutes, yes, but after 5 minutes is our space, meaning we need to use ago. 5 minutes ago. We always use ago after the period of time. Okay, next one. I've been reading this book, blah, 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 last week. So again, we see this been reading, this present perfect continuous tense shows us an action has been continuing. This shows a continuing action or a continuing effect. So we know we should use since. I've been reading this book since last week. So last week, as we talked about here, is our specific point in time. Let's take a look at the next example sentence. It's a little bit tricky, it's a little bit difficult. Here we see the same been waiting, the same present perfect continuous or present perfect progressive tense. This shows us that an action has been continuing, yes, but I've used the word ages here. So ages is sort of a casual expression which means a very long time. That means it's a time period. This is not a specific point in time. Ages is not a specific point in time. It's actually a time period. So we should use for here. You've been waiting here for ages, for a long time is what this sentence means. Okay, last one. They've been dating something something about 2 weeks something something. Okay, so here there are 2 spaces where we can use a word. That should probably give you a good hint that it'll be this since and ago. But let's talk about why. Here, again, we have this continuous form. They've been dating. Dating is the continuous or the progressive form of the verb to date. So we have about plus 2 weeks. So there's a period of time there, yeah? In this case, then, we should use since about 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, they started dating, or they've been dating since about 2 weeks ago. We can use both of these sentences to express the amount of time they have been dating. Okay, so those are a few points about when to use for, since, and ago. We also talked about some grammar points that you can use these words with. If you have any questions about those, check out some of the other videos we've made on this channel, especially about the present perfect tense. They can help give you some more background about those grammar points. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. Welcome back to EnglishClass101.com's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about the difference between speak and talk, 2 commonly confused verbs. So let's get started. Okay, The first verb I want to talk about is the verb talk. We use talk in casual speech, in everyday conversations. If you want to talk about a simple topic or a casual discussion with friends, or you just want to report a conversation that happened or a discussion that happened, you can use talk to explain this simply and casually. In most everyday conversations, I use talk. You'll hear talk a lot when you are listening to conversations about discussions on the phone. We use it to explain phone conversations a lot. We use it to explain simple meetings with people, friendly interactions over coffee, for example. Talk is used in most everyday situations. So if you're reporting on something that's pretty casual, you should use the word talk to explain that. Also, if the person you are talking to is not someone who you have a professional relationship with, it's pretty good to use talk in that case. If you use speak, you might sound a little too formal. We're going to talk about this in just a moment, though. So please try to keep in mind that talk should be used in everyday conversations, to report everyday conversations, and in more casual situations. Okay, we can also use talk, the verb talk, with to or with. By this I mean we can say, I want to talk to someone, or I want to talk with someone. These are, for me, very, very similar. We use them in very similar ways. If you want to be extremely specific, I would say that perhaps there is a small nuance of a difference between talk to and talk with. If I say I want to talk to someone, maybe it could be a more one-sided conversation. Like, I want to talk to my friend. I expect my friend is going to talk to me as well, but I feel like that has a little more of a one-sided conversation feel than using talk with. If I say I want to talk with my friend, I want to talk with you about it, with, to me, sounds a little bit more like doing something together with someone else. So again, this is a very, very small difference, and perhaps this is just my style and how I like to use these words. But for the most part, we can use them interchangeably. We can use them in the same way. And you're not going to really have any communication problems depending on the word you choose. But just for your information, this is how I sometimes use to and with the verb talk, and with speak too, as I'll explain later. Okay, finally, about conjugations for the verb talk. To make the past tense of the verb talk, talk is an start again. Okay, finally, about conjugations with the verb talk. To conjugate the verb talk into the past tense and the past participle, we simply add ed to the end of the verb. So talk becomes talked. This makes past tense and past participle. So a very easy conjugation for the verb talk. So we're going to use this in some example sentences later. Let's take a look, though, at the verb speak. Okay. So we talked about how the verb talk is used in more casual situations, everyday conversations, everyday discussions. Speak, however, is used in more formal situations. If you want to create a more formal nuance or to have a more formal tone when you speak with someone, use the verb speak. So I just used the verb speak to sound a little bit more formal in this explanation, for example. If you would like to sound a little more formal, try using the verb speak instead of the verb talk. This is really useful in business situations, at work. You can use this in business emails as well, or in any kind of writing where you would like to sound a little more formal. This is more polite than talk, as you might have guessed. So talk has a more casual nuance, speak has a more formal nuance about it. As with talk, we can use this with to or with. So speak to someone or speak with someone. I want to speak to my boss. I want to speak with my boss. Like I talked about with talk, we can use the two pretty much in the same way, very, very similarly. I would say there's a very small nuance again. Talk to might sound a little bit more one-sided. One person is reporting information, perhaps, and with perhaps sounds more like an exchange of information. But again, this is a very small difference and perhaps just a way that I think about how to use to and with these verbs. But you can use them essentially in the same way. Speak to or speak with someone. Finally, there's one other key difference between speak and talk, and that is about languages. When you are explaining your language ability, for example, I speak English, I speak Japanese, I don't speak Chinese, we should always use the verb speak. Please don't use the verb talk to explain your language abilities. So a sentence like I talk French is not correct. Please use I speak French. Speak is the correct verb to talk about your language abilities or to talk about your inability as well. So please be careful there. Lastly, a couple conjugation points about this verb then. So speak in the past tense, speak is an irregular verb. Speak becomes spoke in the past tense, spoke. So please be careful here. Also, to make the past participle form, speak becomes spoken. Have you spoken to someone? I've never spoken with someone. So there are two conjugations we need to consider for today's practice. Spoke and spoken. Past tense and past participle tense. Okay, so now that we reviewed a couple points about the difference between talk and speak, let's take a look at a few example sentences and maybe we can decide which verb is a better choice in each of these. Okay. First one, he's something something to his manager. Our hint word here is the word manager. This implies it's a work situation, so it's probably a good idea to sound a little more formal. Let's use spoke, past tense. He spoke to his manager. Of course, you could say he speaks to his manager, but we don't have much other information here. So maybe a simple sentence, he spoke to his manager, is nice. Let's see, the next one, you should blah, blah, blah to your parents. So here we have parents and also you should. This kind of gives us the feeling that this sentence is maybe a casual advice situation. So how about talk? It sounds more casual, so talk sounds better. You should talk to your parents. Again, talk with your parents is also okay here. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Haven't they blah, blah, blah to you about this? So here we have haven't, have not, a negative form here. Haven't they blah, blah, blah to you about this? In this sentence, there's no clear hint word. Is it a casual situation? Is it a formal situation? So in a sentence like this, because we don't have enough information about the situation, both talk and speak are actually okay. But we do need to conjugate the verb correctly so that it matches this haven't at the beginning of the sentence. So we can say, haven't they talked to you or haven't they spoken to you about this? Both are correct in this case. Haven't they talked to you? Haven't they spoken to you? It just changes the level of formality of the sentence. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one. I really wanted to something something to you. Again, it's a little bit difficult to determine, is this a formal situation or a casual situation? I would guess I've included the word really here. Typically, really is only used in casual situations, or it's better to use a word like really in less formal situations. So I think that talk is a better choice here. I really wanted to talk to you. Nice. All right, next one. She's something something with clients at the moment. So here the hint is clients, indicating it's a business situation or a more formal situation. And here we have the grammar she is. She is. This implies a progressive or a continuous grammar sentence. So she's something something. Clients gives us the hint it's more formal. Let's use speak. But again, to change it to the progressive form, she's speaking with clients at the moment. Sounds nice. Okay, let's look at the next sentence then. What were they, blah, 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 with that guy about? Okay, so here I've used with, again, we can use to or with, but I've included guy as a hint word here. Guy sounds a little bit more casual. We use guy in maybe more casual discussions, everyday discussions. So we probably want to use talk in this case, a more casual choice. Here we see it's past. What were they, something, something, with that guy about? But we know this should be a past progressive tense sentence too. What were they? This indicates something continuing. What were they talking with that guy about? What were they talking with that guy about? Great. All right. Next one, you guys should have blah, blah, blah about it last week. Again, we see this you guys, implying something more casual. You guys should have. So again, this is probably a sentence where we need to use the verb talk because it's a more casual situation. We could use the verb speak if you like, but again, it's going to sound a little more formal. Here we have you guys, which sounds casual. So mixing casual and formal might sound a little strange. So here, to match our grammar, you guys should have talked about it last week is the nice sentence here. Okay, let's look at the last one then. She's never, blah, 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 to me. So she's, this is an interesting contraction. Be careful. It's not she is never. Never is a big hint here, yeah? We know that never, we use never a lot in present perfect tense sentences. So she's here does not mean she is. Instead, this is the contracted form of she has. So here, she has never something something to me. In this sentence, we don't know if it's a casual or a formal expression, so we can choose either verb. So, she has never talked to me is correct, or she has never spoken to me. She's never talked to me, she's never spoken to me. Both are correct, just depending on the situation and depending on the nuance you would like to communicate, you can choose the better form or the better verb accordingly. So these are a few cases where speak and talk, it might be a good idea to choose one or the other. But I would recommend just keep in mind if you want to sound more formal, please choose the verb speak. If you want to sound a little more casual, use the verb talk. In most cases, we will use the verb talk, but maybe at work it's a good idea to use speak instead. Also, don't forget to use speak to talk about your language abilities too. Thanks very much for watching this episode, and we will see you again soon. Bye! Today I'm going to talk about the difference between active voice and passive voice. In this lesson, I want to explain a few ways that I think can help you decide how to choose between active voice or passive voice. This will be hopefully useful for your speaking and for your writing skills. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the active voice. English uses a lot of sentences in the active voice. We like to use active voice a lot in speech and in writing. So, we use active voice when we want to place emphasis on the subject, like the person or the thing that is doing an action or causing an action. So the emphasis here is on the subject. We know the subject of the sentence in the case of the active voice, and we want to emphasize that. The person who is doing an action, for example. You want to emphasize that, you know who is doing the action, use the active voice. So an example could be, a thief stole my bag. In this situation, we know a thief stole my bag. Here, the simple past tense is used, and we have my bag as the object here. So everything is clear, everything is known in this sentence. I'm going to talk about a different style, a different way to explain this sentence in just a moment, but we can use the active voice to explain a situation like this. Another example. My coworker deleted an important file. So here's another situation. We know who did the action, my coworker in this case. Simple past tense, deleted here shows the action that happened, the action that occurred, and what was deleted, an important file here. So again, I'm going to talk about a different way to explain this sentence in just a moment. But these are a couple ways we can use active tense, or active voice rather, when all the information is known. Some more simple sentences. I ate dinner. Again, the subject, the verb, and what was being eaten here in this case. I ate dinner. Very simple sentence. Here, he took me to a movie. So we know the subject, the action, who is receiving the action. In this case, it's me. Here, she made dinner. Again, very, very simple sentences. We can make simple sentences in just 3 words, for example, with the active voice. It's very, very easy to use active voice. We just need to know the subject, what they did, and who received the effect, or who that action occurred to put it in a strange way. So we can use active voice to explain a lot of things in a very, very short way. But sometimes active voice is maybe not the best choice. So let's take a look at passive voice and see if we can compare a few things here. When we talk in the passive voice, or when we write in the passive voice, we do it because we want to place emphasis on the object of an action, something which is receiving the action. We want to place the emphasis on that, or we use it when the subject is unknown or unimportant. So, to give a few examples, let's look here. My bag was stolen. Here, my bag, this is the thing that an action has occurred to. So you can think of it like the bag is the one, or is the object that is receiving the action here. My bag was stolen. My bag was stolen. So we have to use a different grammar to explain in passive voice. So the difference here, my bag was stolen, the difference between this sentence and a thief stole my bag is that we don't have a clear doer of the action. We're not talking about specifically who stole my bag, but rather the important point here is that my bag was stolen. It doesn't matter who, or we don't know who stole the bag, but I want to emphasize this situation. In this case, passive voice is much, much better than active voice because I don't know the subject perhaps. Let's look at one more example. An important file got deleted. So here you'll see got. We use got a lot, this past tense got, or rather past participle got, in passive voice a lot. It gives kind of more of a nuance of something negative occurring. It gives sort of the feeling that a negative outcome has happened as a result of this situation. So you might see got deleted, or got plus the verb in this case. So here I've used got deleted. I'll show you one more in just a second. So here, an important file got deleted. Let's compare this to the active voice. My coworker deleted an important file. In the active voice, I know who deleted the file. My coworker deleted the file. In the passive voice, however, I don't mention my coworker. So maybe I don't know who deleted the file. I don't know who completed the action, who did the action. So I can drop that name. I can drop my coworker. I can drop the name of the person who did the action. I want to emphasize the situation. The file, the important file got deleted. That's what I want to emphasize. In this case, I should use the passive voice. This sounds much, much better if I want to emphasize the important file. If, however, I want to emphasize my coworker, for example, I'm angry with my coworker, I could say, my coworker deleted an important file. In this case, the emphasis is my coworker. In this sentence, the important file is the emphasis. So this is a really key point between the difference between active and passive forms. Okay, let's look at a few more examples. So next one, your lunch got eaten. So again, I've used this got here, yeah? I've used got plus eaten, the past participle form of the verb. So as I talked about in this sentence, got deleted, we use got to show kind of a negative outcome, something we didn't want to happen necessarily. This is very common in passive voice. So your lunch got eaten. By whom? We don't know. Somebody ate this person's lunch, but we don't know who did the action. So we can omit that person and we can simply emphasize your lunch here. This is the focus of the sentence. Your lunch got eaten. Okay, let's take a look at one more sentence. Their window was broken. Their window was broken. We don't know how the window was broken. Maybe it was a person, maybe it was a burglar, maybe it was bad weather, maybe just a strange accident. We don't know how or who broke the window, so we can omit, we can remove any identifying information about who or what completed the action. Instead, we focus on the window. Their window was broken. This is the focus of this sentence. Finally, let's look at one more. Flowers were delivered to the office. In this sentence, we don't know where the flowers came from, who ordered the flowers. We don't know any information about the situation, but we simply want to report something we saw at the office, for example. We can use the passive tense to do that. Flowers were delivered to the office. So in each of these sentences, we don't know, or it's not important who did the action or what did the action, but we want to emphasize the object of the action. We want to emphasize the person or the item receiving the action in this case. In active voice, however, we want to emphasize the person doing the action or the thing doing the action. So please keep this in mind when you're trying to choose between active voice and passive voice. If it's a known subject, or if you want to emphasize that subject more strongly than the item receiving that action, use the active voice. If you don't know the subject, or if you want to emphasize the object of the action, use the passive voice. I hope that those were a few good points. I hope that those were a few helpful ways to help you remember how to use active voice and passive voice. But if you have any questions or comments, let us know in the comment section, or try to make a few sentences if you like. Thanks very much for watching this episode, and we'll see you again soon. Bye! Today I'm going to talk about uncountable nouns. I'm going to talk about a few points related to uncountable nouns and some words we can use with uncountable nouns. I'm going to talk about the ways we can use units to count parts of uncountable nouns, and I'm going to talk about some quantifiers and some questions which we can use with this grammar point. So let's get started. Okay, so the first point here about uncountable nouns. Uncountable nouns are nouns we cannot count. So countable means able to count. This prefix un means not, the negative. So not countable. Nouns we cannot count. We cannot use 1, 2, or 3 to count numbers of these nouns. With uncountable nouns, we can use some determiners. So determiners are, for example, or an, or the, this, that, my, his, and so on. With uncountable nouns, we can use, for example, this and that, and we can use possessives like my, his, her, our, and so on. However, we cannot use a or an with uncountable nouns. This is because a and an are used for the singular forms of nouns, and we don't have a singular or plural form necessarily for uncountable nouns. So we cannot use a or an because these two articles are used for singular forms. So please be careful of this. Some determiners like this and that are fine, and possessives are okay, but not a or an. Okay. Also, when you want to make a general statement, you should use no determiner. No determiner. So know this, know that, know the, or whatever, unless you want to make a statement, a general statement about a specific group or a specific object, a specific mass entity, for example. We'll talk a little bit about this later. Okay, so let's take a look at some common uncountable nouns then. I've also included here, though, their units. So by units, I mean ways to count the parts of these nouns. So we cannot count these nouns because they're thought of as like a mass. They're thought of as kind of a group. A group or an assembly of many, many different parts. So we don't count the group itself, the mass itself. However, we can count the parts within that group. So let's take a look at the first example, maybe the most important one, time. So time is an uncountable noun. We don't count 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times. We don't do that. However, we count parts of time, measurements of time. So for example, all of these are countable nouns. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades, millennia. These are all the countable nouns we use to count the parts of time. We cannot count time. We can count the parts of time only. Let's look at one more example. Money. So money, we cannot count money, 1 money, 2 money, 3 money. We don't do that. Instead, we count the parts. For example, cents, dollars, yen, pounds, euro, pesos, for example. We use the currency, the type of money, and the denominations, the pieces or the parts within that currency to count. So we cannot count money, but we can count the type of money. We can count currency amounts. Okay, another couple that are fairly common are beer and wine, so drinks, for example. We don't count beer necessarily as a group. We can say one beer to refer to one drink of beer. We can say that, however. But in general, for liquid, when you see a lot of liquid, we don't say one beer, two beer. Instead, we count it by the serving. So for example, with beer, we use glasses, pints, half pints, mugs, kegs, growlers. These are a few ways that we can count beer. These are all countable nouns. A similar rule applies to wine. We don't say really one wine, two wines. We can use that to mean one single drink, but there are sometimes different ways that we need to explain wine. So we use these words, glasses or bottles or decanters. So we use decanter of wine, bottle of wine in these cases, not one wine or two wines. Make sure to say like bottle or decanter to refer specifically to the type of measurement you mean. Another very common example is clothes. So clothes is kind of a category of items. It's a type of item. There are many different kinds of clothes. So we count, for example, shirts, sweaters, socks, shoes, hats, pairs of pants. We don't say one clothes, two clothes, three clothes. Instead, we count these smaller items inside the category of clothes. Okay, just a couple more examples. Food is another very, very big one. So food itself, we don't really say one food, two food, three food. Instead, we count inside food, for example, snacks, drinks, salads, appetizers, pizzas, breadsticks, cakes, whatever. So the food, the dish itself, we count the dish, but not food as a category. Finally, air is another one. We don't count air with numbers. We can count parts of air, but if you want to know, we can use, for example, molecules to talk about components, pieces of air, if you like. So these are just a few examples of uncountable nouns and some of the units we can use to count the parts within those uncountable nouns. Okay, next let's head over to how to make a few questions. So similar to countable nouns, we can use uncountable nouns to make information questions, to make requests, to make offers. But one key point here is when you're asking a quantity question with an uncountable noun, you need to use much. So when you're using a countable noun, you should use how many plus the plural form. If you're using an uncountable noun, you need to use how much plus your noun. How much time, how much money, how much beer, for example. There's no S to add at the end, there's no plural form that we need to think about. Just the uncountable noun and any other information. How much beer did you drink? How much time do you have, for example? So please use much when you're making a question with an uncountable noun. Second, do you plus a verb, any, plus your uncountable noun. So we can change this verb in the sentence depending on what we need, but this is a general information question. Like, do you need any time, or do you need any new clothes, for example. So we just use the uncountable noun here at the end of this phrase to make an information question. Another common pattern would be a request. So can I have some blah, blah, blah? Can I have some wine? Can I have some food? Of course, you can use a unit here if you like, if you want to be specific. But if you want to be general, like can I have some more time on this project? We can use an uncountable noun in this sentence pattern as well. Of course, there are many different sentence patterns, but these are a few questions that might be helpful for you. Okay. Let's look at the last thing for today, quantifiers. Quantifiers. So we use quantifiers to talk about amounts of nouns. In this case, I'm going to talk about some quantifiers we can use to talk about the amounts of uncountable nouns. So we can use first at the end of the spectrum here at around like 0. I've kind of made a scale here from 0, like no of something, there's no amount, there's 0 of something, to a lot of something, 100 at the other end. I've made kind of a scale of a few quantifiers. So here we can say no, I have no time. We can use don't plus a verb plus any, like I don't have any time. Also is over here at the 0 part. We can say I have almost no time, meaning very, very little time, for example. So very little and almost no would go about here. Here we can say not much. I have not in parentheses because you just need to use the negative form. I don't have much time, or I don't need much to drink, for example. So we can use much here, but we need to use a negative in this case. We can also use hardly any with uncountable nouns. So I have hardly any time to work on this project, or I have hardly any wine in my refrigerator, for example. We can use a bit of. I have a bit of beer to drink. A small amount of. So I have a small amount of time this afternoon, if you're free. We have a decent amount of. So, there's a decent amount of time this afternoon, if that's better for you. We can use some as well. Some, again, is kind of vague. It's not so clear, the quantity with some, but if you just want to refer to having some, making it available, you can use some. So like we might say, I have some clothes I want to throw away. We can use lots of and a lot of. So I drank a lot of beer last night, or I drank a lot of wine last night, might be a common sentence you can hear. We can use quite a lot of, quite a lot of. So I have quite a lot of time this weekend, let's do something. We have the casual tons of and a bunch of too. So I have tons of time, or I have a bunch of new clothes to try on, for example. And we can also use all. So you could say, who drank all the beer? Or who, let's see, what's another example? Someone took all my clothes, for example. We can use all with uncountable nouns as well. So again, these are just a few examples of some expressions you might hear with uncountable nouns. You'll see too, as with countable nouns, we can use some of these, as I've marked with the green star here. Some of these are okay to use with countable nouns and uncountable nouns. So if you get stuck, you can try to remember which ones are okay for both countable and uncountable nouns. For example, lots of and a lot of, some is good. Almost no is pretty handy, pretty useful as well. Another point here I want to mention, this is a problem that many students have, is using much in positive statements of quantity. For example, I have much money, I have much time. We cannot use much in this way. We should use I have a lot of time, I have quite a lot of time. Much is used with negatives, so I don't have much time, for example. I don't have much money. We can only use much for a quantity statement with a negative form. So please don't use much to make a positive statement about quantity. Please be careful. This is a very common mistake. All right, but those are a few points I wanted to make about uncountable nouns today. Thanks very much for watching this episode, and I will see you again soon. Bye.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. Today I'm going to talk about countable nouns. I'm going to talk about how to make the plural form of countable nouns. I'm going to talk about a few question patterns you can use with countable nouns, and I'm going to talk about some quantifiers for countable nouns. So let's get started. Okay, so the first point, maybe the most important point first of all, is that countable nouns are nouns which we can count. We use numbers 1, 2, and 3, and we can count the numbers of these nouns. They are countable, able to be counted. That's the first point for today's lesson. Second, countable nouns have a singular form, single here, you can see single is the base, one, singular form, and a plural form, plural meaning more than one. So the words themselves have a singular form, one of something, and a plural form, more than one of something. A couple of notes about singular form and plural form, however. Singular form nouns, we have to use a determiner. So for example, determiners are like articles, like a or an or the, or we could use this, that, my, his, her, for example. We need some kind of determiner, something that gives us information about a singular noun. We must use a determiner with a singular noun. So we have to say a dog or his dog or my dog. We cannot simply say dog in this with the singular form. So please be careful. If you use the singular form of a noun, you need to use a determiner. Okay. Let's look at the plural form. My note for the plural form here is that no determiner is required. So you don't always have to use a determiner here with the plural form, the dogs, his dogs, her dogs, for example. But if you're referring generally to a group, no determiner should be used. So this is a very common mistake. For example, if talking about all teachers, or all doctors, or making a general statement about a group of people, for example, no determiner should be used. We should not use the doctors or the teachers unless you're talking about a specific group of doctors or a specific group of teachers. If you want to make a general statement about all people or all countable nouns in one category, no determiner should be used. So please be careful. Okay, so these are 2 points about the singular form and the plural form, so please be careful of this. Okay, let's continue on to how to make the plural forms of nouns. There are a few different rules to consider here. So first, the regular way to make a plural noun is to just add an S to the end of the noun. So for example, dogs, we add an S, computers, and cars. So these are simple plural form nouns. We just add an S to the end of the noun to make the plural form. However, there are some cases where the spelling will change slightly and the pronunciation will also change slightly. The basic S sound is still there, however, it's an ES sound, so it's noun plus ES. When do we do this? We do this with nouns that end in X, in CH, double S, S, or SH. This is kind of difficult to remember. I think that if you practice, if you read a lot, and if you speak a lot, you'll gradually come to understand this. This is something I personally never studied as a native speaker, but through practice, through reading a lot too, I gradually came to understand which nouns take ES and which nouns do not. But some examples here, foxes, fox ends in X, so it takes ES in the plural form. Classes, class ends in SS, so we take ES for the plural form. Finally, sandwich, sandwich ends in CH, so we add ES, very important. So not sandwiches with no E, but we need to use an E in the word sandwiches. Please be careful. Okay, finally, there is one more different spelling for plural nouns here. We have noun plus IES. If the noun ends in a Y, we drop the Y in the plural form. We cut the Y and add IES. So a few examples of this are countries. We have IES, no Y here. We have candies, again, no Y, IES, and copies, so no Y and IES. So these are 3 ways to make plural forms, adding ES or an ES sound or just a simple S. So depending on the noun you would like to make plural, you need to kind of remember these rules or at least think about them a little bit until you kind of get used to making nouns correctly. Okay, but I want to go to something a little bit more challenging, which is nouns which have irregular plural forms. So these are countable nouns, but they don't follow the S rule. We can't just add S to make these nouns plural. Let's take a look at a few. So one, for example, is person, the noun person. We can say one person. However, the plural form is people, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Please keep this in mind. Another very common one, especially for pronunciation, is woman to women and man to men. Please be careful of your vowel pronunciation here in particular. woman and women. The first vowel, O, here does not change in terms of spelling, but in pronunciation it does change. Women sounds much different than the singular form, woman. So please be careful. Sometimes poor pronunciation can cause difficulties in understanding or poor communication. So this is a great pronunciation point, both woman and man. So man becomes men, a very clear vowel sound change there. So these two are a couple to be very, very careful of and to practice as well. Some nouns, however, do not change in the plural form. Some nouns, for example, fish, fish does not change. We use fish and fish in the singular and the plural form. If you are curious about how to know whether you're reading something or hearing something about singular fish or plural fish, in most cases, you can guess based on the situation, based on the context. If it's very, very difficult, then I suppose the author might include a number before the word fish, like 2 fish or 3 fish. But in most cases, this isn't an issue. The same thing applies to sheep, actually. Sheep, the plural form of sheep is also sheep. There is no change here. But we can count them as 2 sheep, 3 sheep, 4 sheep, for example. Okay, a few more. The singular form of child becomes the plural form children. Please be careful there. Foot becomes feet. Tooth becomes teeth. And one more interesting one, mouse. Mouse becomes mice in the plural form. 2 mice, 3 mice, 4 mice. So these are just a few examples of some of the irregular plural forms you can find with countable nouns. This is not everything, for sure, but these are some very common examples, I think. Okay. Let's continue on to a few question patterns with countable nouns. So the first one I have is how many blah blah blahs. Please keep in mind when you are asking a quantity question with countable nouns, you need to use how many. Please do not use how much with a countable noun. We use how much with uncountable nouns. So how many plus an S sound. Don't forget this S sound. Many people forget. How many pens, how many dogs, how many children. In that case, there's no S sound, but if you are using a noun with an S sound, please make sure that S sound is very clear. But in any case, you need to use the plural form after how many. Okay, a couple of other examples. Maybe you've seen our other YouTube videos about any and some. So here I have an example. Do you verb any plural form? So here, again, there's that S sound. If your noun ends in an S, make it very, very clear when you pronounce it. So do you have any pets, for example? Or do you need any strawberries, for example? So here I've got verb, and I've got any plus S, so this is maybe making an offer or asking for information. You need some kind of information if you're asking this question. It wouldn't be an offer, but asking for information. This is the kind of question you might be able to use with countable nouns. Finally, to make a request, as we talked about in the some video, any and some video, can I have some plus the plural form? So can I have some cookies, for example, or can I have some cupcakes, for example? So again, please make sure your S sound is very clear at the end of this sentence. All right. The last thing I want to talk about for this lesson is quantifiers. So quantifiers we use with the plural form. Please do not use quantifiers with the singular form. We use quantifiers to talk about amounts, how much or how many of something. For countable nouns, we're going to talk about how many of something we have or don't have, for example. So we can use no with a quantifier. So I have no pets, for example. We can say that. Or I don't have any pets. Here I have don't plus verb plus any. So I don't have any pets. Or I don't need any cupcakes. I'm thinking about cupcakes today. So I don't need any blah, blah, blah. So we can replace the verb here with the verb of your choice.
There's almost no. Almost no. I've kind of put this up a little further on this spectrum from 0 to 100. So it's very close to 0. So I have almost no pancakes left in my kitchen, for example. So not very many, in other words. Just above that, maybe, would be hardly any, hardly any. So there are hardly any children in school today, for example. Maybe around here on the spectrum. A couple of, the word couple is here. It has the nuance of two. So there are a couple of dogs in the park, for example. Just above a couple of might be a few. A few in my mind sounds like maybe 3 or 4, for example. Like there are a few birds in the tree outside the office. Several sounds to me like more than a few, a larger number than a couple of or a few. So to use several in a sentence, for example, there are several clocks in the office. The next one, I've got some here. I've put some tentatively at about 50. Some is very, very vague. Some can mean a small amount, or it can mean maybe a reasonable amount of something. But generally, it's somewhere around here on my 0 to 100 scale. So you can feel kind of about how much some is. Yeah. So for example, I ate some... What did I eat today? I ate some salads last week or something like that. So it's kind of a vague expression, but we can't really guess how many are here. But some can tell us just that maybe more than a few were consumed in my example sentence. So some, again, some is rather vague. Maybe it's not as clear as some of the other expressions, but you can kind of figure it out for yourself when you'd like to use it. All right, the next one, lots of and a lot of are about in the same point here on the spectrum. So lots of means lots of, there's a good number of something. So for example, I got lots of letters in the mail last Christmas. So it refers to a good number of something. Next up, maybe quite a few. So quite a few of something. So I got quite a few emails last week, we could say. Towards the end here, we have tons of and a bunch of. These sound rather casual, tons of and a bunch of. Again, very, very large quantity. So I ate tons of sweets last weekend, or I bought a bunch of CDs last weekend, for example. So a very, very large quantity. And finally, we can use the word all with countable nouns. Like, for example, maybe all the children went to school today, or all the women in the room left suddenly. So we can use all with countable nouns. Just again, please make sure to use the plural form with these. So all of these are some examples of quantifiers we can use with countable nouns. You'll see too, I have green stars on some of these. Just a note. The ones with green stars, we can use these with countable and uncountable nouns. So I know sometimes it's difficult to guess, is it a countable noun? Is it an uncountable noun? What quantifier should I use? I don't know. These are a few that you can use with both countable and uncountable nouns. So if you're stuck, if you can't remember, you can try using one of these, like lots of and a lot of, some. These are very, very useful ones, I think. So try to keep these in mind, a couple of these in mind. So if you have trouble remembering which ones are for countable nouns and which ones are for uncountable nouns, you can remember this. Okay, so that's just a quick introduction to countable nouns. I hope that this was useful for you. If you have any questions or comments or want to try to make a sentence, please feel free to do so in the comment section below this video.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. Today I'm going to be talking about the verb to be. So in this lesson, I'm going to talk about the use of the word to be, and I'm going to introduce a few example sentences as well as give some explanations about some questions that you guys have had about the different uses of the verb to be, specifically different conjugations of the verb to be. So let's get started. Okay. So the first point I want to mention about the verb to be is that be expresses a state or a condition. This is some point about the way a person is, or a characteristic, a feature of a person, an object, a situation. So we use be to talk about existence. Existence. Existence is like the base level of the verb, the base meaning of the verb. So maybe you've heard the very famous Shakespeare expression, the expression from the Shakespeare play Hamlet, to be or not to be. This is a very famous expression which uses the verb to be. But here, this famous speech comes from the character's kind of internal monologue, or the character's thoughts about whether to be alive, to exist, or not to be, to not exist, to be dead. So in this case, yes, we are using the verb, or the verb is used to mean existence, to mean alive or not alive. However, in modern English today, we use the verb to be in many, many cases, not referring to being alive or not alive, but we use it as a linking verb. So to be, and the negative form, is used to connect the subject to its other information. This is the purpose of a linking verb. We have a subject and some other information about the subject. We use the verb to be to link those two things together. So I've prepared a lot of examples and some conjugation review points that I hope can help show some of these, the ways we can use the verb to be as in modern American English. Let's take a look first at the present tense. So please remember that depending on the subject of the sentence, the conjugation of the verb to be is going to change. So if the subject of the present sentence is I, we'll use am. If the subject is he, she, or it, we'll use is. If the subject is you, we, or they, we use are. So please keep these in mind. Of course, the negative form, we add not after this. So I am not, he is not, you are not, for example. Let's look at a few simple examples here. The subject he, for he, I apply is, the conjugation is. He is my brother. So here is my subject, he. Extra information, my brother, and is. This is my linking verb. It connects the information together. Another example, the neighbors are noisy. Please be careful. I've noticed that many people forget that they're actually using a plural when they talk about neighbors or parents, for example. This little s here, the neighbors, the people who live next to me, this is a plural subject. So we should apply the same rule we use for they. They are, in this case. The neighbors are noisy. Here is another example, the computers, not people here, but multiple objects. The computers, that S sound, it marks the plural form. So we have to use the same conjugation rule. The computers, they are, essentially, they are all broken here. One more, you are not my friend. So here we have the subject you and the negative, not my friend. You are not my friend. So in each of these, we are connecting the subject with some other information using a conjugated form of the verb be. Okay. I also want to mention the infinitive form, this to plus be. So I talked about to be a little bit here. To be meaning existence. We can use to be in modern English as well, so meaning there's no change to the verb. But we use it in a few situations referring to existence, referring to a situation. So let's take a look at a few examples. So here I have, I want her to be my boss. I want her to be my boss, meaning she is not my boss now, but in the future I want her to be. I want her to be in the state of being my boss. I want her to become my boss. However, we don't say become. I want her to be my boss. So this is maybe a desire I want for a future situation where a person, her in this case, is desired to be, to exist in a condition as this person's boss. Okay, let's try another example. This is a very, very common example. Please tell him to be
on time. To be is used here before the expression on time. So on time means the correct time. So for example, if the meeting begins at 1 o'clock, he needs to be in the meeting room at 1 o'clock. So to be, in this case, means be in a condition, be in the state of on time, at the correct time. So this is a very common one. Tell him to be on time. Please be on time, meaning you, in your condition, your status in the day should be on time. So this is a great one to remember. Here's one more example, again about time. It's very commonly used for time, for schedules. Didn't they tell you to be here at 8 o'clock? So again, to be meaning exist here, to bring yourself here. You need to exist here at 8 o'clock. Didn't they tell you that? So again, to be refers to your body, your person here, existing. So I need to be here to make these videos, or I need to be in the studio to do a live stream every week. I need to be somewhere. So we use be to talk about our body's position or our body's location, where we exist. We can use to be with that. Okay, so I've already started talking about a few different prepositions, actually. I mentioned I need to be at the studio, or I need to be in the office, for example. There are a few common prepositions that we can use with the verb to be. So because to be refers to our existence, refers to our location, for example, we can use it with a few prepositions like in or at. So I can say I need to be in the office, I need to be at the office. Both are okay to use with the verb to be because they talk about, or they help us express our existence, our condition, where we are located. We can also use with to talk about people, like I want to be with my family this weekend, or I want to be with my husband or my wife later, or I want to be with my friends every day, for example. So we can use with along with the verb to be. So these are a couple of common prepositions you'll see with the verb to be and its various forms. Okay, so let's continue on to a couple different grammar points. Let's talk now about the past tense. We can use to be in past tense. Just remember, again, the verb does conjugate here. It's I was, if the subject of the sentence is I. He, she, and it was. He was, she was, it was. And with you, we, and they, we use were. You were, they were, we were. Here, I've used it as in I was late to work, past tense. The neighbors were noisy. So again, as I talked about with the present tense example, neighbors is plural, so the rule for they applies here. They were noisy. Same thing here. I used the same sentence, just in past tense. The computers were all broken. One more, she wasn't very friendly, so a negative form. And please remember that you can use the contracted form. Instead of was not, we can use wasn't. It sounds a lot more natural. She wasn't very friendly. So please keep in mind the past tense forms as well, the past tense form and the negative forms too. All right, let's continue on to a couple different points. I want to talk about the continuous or the progressive form. A couple patterns. Some of you have sent in questions about the use of the word being in sentences like these. Like, what's the difference between including being and no being in an example sentence? So let's take a look at a couple examples. We use being in this progressive form to express a temporary state. So if you've watched any videos about the continuous form or the progressive form, you know we use it sometimes to talk about a temporary state, something that's not always true, but for now it is true. The same rule applies to being. So if we can imagine the blue line here is a present tense statement. Present tense, remember, is something that's always true. It's a general fact. The red line here is a temporary situation. So here I have past, present, now, and the future. So let's look at these two example sentences. My brother is annoying. My brother's not really annoying. My brother is annoying. is a present tense sentence. So this is a general fact, for an example. A general fact, always true. My brother is annoying. I have an adjective here. My brother is annoying. However, in this sentence, my brother is being annoying right now. My brother is being annoying means in this point in time only, for this short period of time only, right now, my brother is being. He's in the condition. His status, his existence is annoying right now. If I said my brother is annoying right now, it's okay. But being annoying, it sounds a bit more natural to a native speaker. My brother is being annoying right now. Let's look at one more example. My computer is not cooperative. I've used the negative, not cooperative. So this is a little bit of a funny sentence. It suggests maybe my computer can think for itself. So cooperative, meaning my computer is not working very well, in other words. But here I've used the adjective, my computer is not cooperative. So maybe I have an old computer. So every day, in this sentence, in a present tense sentence, my computer is not cooperative. It doesn't work very well. However, if I want to use being here, I can say my computer wasn't, in past tense maybe, my computer wasn't being cooperative today. So in this sentence, we see today only. My computer was not being. My computer was not functioning. My computer was not existing in a cooperative state. Its condition was not cooperative for me in that day. So here I've used being. My computer wasn't cooperative today is okay as well, but we can use being. It kind of emphasizes the existence. It emphasizes that temporary condition here. So this sounds really nice. My computer wasn't being cooperative today. Try to use this if you like. So again, we use this for a temporary situation. Keep that in mind. Being blah, blah, blah. Being before your adjective in this case. So that's one point I wanted to mention. Let's move on to a couple more maybe difficult or advanced points I wanted to share, and I want to introduce a few examples here too. First, present perfect tense. We've talked about the present perfect tense in some other videos before, but let's review. When your subject is I, we use have been. When this subject is he, she, or it has been, he has been, she has been, it has been. When we use you, we, and they, it's have been. You have been, they have been, we have been. So we can use this as we've looked at in the past. I have been studying. Here's our present perfect form. The past participle form, been. I have been, she has been working, they have been living. And then some questions. Have we been sleeping? Or where have you been living, for example? Here you'll see we use been, the past participle form of the verb, here in present perfect tense. So maybe many of you are familiar. Maybe this kind of pattern is okay for you. But let's kind of look at a few examples that are a bit more difficult or a bit more advanced, like the past perfect tense. So here, in past perfect tense, we need to change from have, as we've done with present perfect, to had, the past tense. So here, all of these are going to be the same verb. I had been, he had been, you had been. We keep the verb be with been here. But we can actually change all of these sentences I just talked about in present perfect, to the past perfect tense just by changing the verb have here. So for example, I had been studying, she had been working, they had been living, for example. We can make past perfect sentences just by changing the verb here. So please keep this in mind. The verb to be does not change in this case, but we can make some more complex sentences, in this case, a past perfect sentence, quite easily, actually, with no change to the be verb. All right, there's one more situation or one more kind of sentence I want to mention today, and that's sentences that use if clauses. So if something, then something else. These if-then type statements. So here's one example. If more people had come, it would have been a better party. It would have been. So here we see there's an if statement that introduces a point. So here's my if clause. If more people had come, it would have been a better party. So here, I'm talking about a past situation. So at the party, maybe not a lot of people came to the party, but if more people had come in the past, it would have been a better party. So I want to introduce this because a lot of people have no problem with the if clause, like if more people had come or if more people had been at the party. However, many people forget to conjugate the verb in the main clause. It would have been. So please don't forget this part. It would have been. Don't forget your would either here. Let's look at one more. If you had been here earlier, so here we see the verb to be is in our if clause. If you had been here earlier, you would have heard my good news in this case. So here, the to be verb is in the if clause, in that if clause at the beginning of the sentence. If you had been here, if your body had existed in this place earlier, you would have heard my good news. So here we can see it in the if clause of the sentence. This is a very useful one. If you had been here earlier, you can use this in a surprising number of situations, I think. Let's look at one more. If we hadn't been at the beach today, so here I have a negative in the if clause. So hadn't been, if we hadn't been at the beach today, we wouldn't have seen whales, for example. So here I've made a kind of complex sentence with a negative. If we hadn't been at the beach, if our bodies had not been at the beach, if we had not existed at the beach today, we would not have seen whales. It would not have been possible to see whales. So you can use this in the positive and the negative to make some very complex sentences just about existence, about where you or where an object is, where your body is. So I know that to be can be a difficult verb to use, but think about the various ways we've talked about in this lesson to use the verb to be and try to make some interesting sentences. So there are a lot of different ways to use this verb, but keep in mind it's so useful as a linking verb. So we're connecting a subject to some key information about the subject, and we're talking about our existence with this verb. So give it a try. If you have any questions or if you want to just try an example sentence, leave it in a comment and we can check it out. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia, and today I'm going to talk about the difference between if and when. Some of you have asked questions about this, and I've noticed that some people make some key and maybe dangerous mistakes between these two words. So let's talk about when to use them. Okay, let's talk about when first. We use when there's 100% certainty something is going to happen. So for example, with travel plans, when you arrive in the country, or when you get to my house, for example, or when you register for classes. So 100% certainty something is going to happen. I've made a timeline here, as I like to do. On a timeline here, the image you can think about is that when I've used a green line here. It's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. We use when we know something is going to happen. There's 100% certainty here. This is a key point. It's going to happen. If, on the other hand, we use if there's only a chance something is going to happen. There's only a chance. It is not determined. It is not something that has been decided. If is used for a chance something will occur. If is not used in cases where we know something is going to happen or something should happen. If is only used to express chance or possibility. So on the same timeline here in red, I've made a dotted line to express if. There's a possibility in the future something might happen. There's a chance in the future something might happen. In these cases, we use if. So for example, if you lose your student ID card, if you get lost, for example. So please be careful. Don't use if in cases where there's 100% certainty something is going to happen. And on the other hand, don't use when in cases where there's only a chance something will happen. Making a mistake between these two words can destroy relationships, or it can really cause some serious confusion. So I made a few example sentences that I've actually seen, some that are similar to these. So let's take a look and see why making a mistake could be really, really dangerous or could really damage a relationship if you make a mistake with these two. Let's take a look. All right, so first sentence, blah, 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 we break up. What are you going to do? So if you don't know, the word break up means to end a romantic relationship, to break up with someone. Here, let's think, if or when. If we look at this rule, if I say when, if I'm speaking to my partner, if I say, when we break up, what are you going to do? If I choose the word when, it sounds like in my mind, to me, I've decided, I know 100%, I'm certain we are going to break up. This sounds very, very sad probably to my partner if my partner doesn't know my feelings. So if I say, when we break up, what are you going to do? It sounds like I've decided to end the relationship. That's probably not what I want to say. In this case, let's use if. If we break up, there's a chance. If we break up, what are you going to do? So let's use if here. Of course, this is a very maybe serious sentence anyway, but using if shows there's only a chance of a breakup. When shows it's definite, you've decided already, so please be careful. Let's look at another very interesting sentence. Something, something, your wallet gets stolen, call me. Your wallet gets stolen. So here, if I use when here, when your wallet gets stolen, call me, means the speaker expects the listener's wallet will be stolen. That sounds very, very strange, a little mysterious, right? So if your wallet gets stolen, however, it sounds like there's a chance. Maybe the listener is going somewhere dangerous, for example. So in this case, if is a much better choice. When sounds like the speaker has some secret plan, maybe. When your wallet gets stolen sounds like maybe the speaker has maybe made plans or knows mysteriously somehow that the listener's wallet is going to get stolen. Let's use if in this sentence. Here's another one. Blah, 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 you hear screaming. So screaming means loud, terrified voice. If you hear a loud, terrified, screaming voice, don't worry. So if you say when you hear screaming, don't worry. Or if you hear screaming, don't worry. So I suppose if it's around Halloween, for example, and you're at a haunted house, you could say when in this case. But if you're in a regular situation and someone wants to warn you of something, it sounds a bit strange to say when you hear screaming, don't worry. But maybe if is a better choice here. If you hear screaming, don't worry. Like maybe your friend, for example, is making a crazy video outside and they're going to shout a lot, for example. So there's a chance you may hear screaming. So this one is probably better for if you hear. Of course, in some cases, like I said, in like a haunted house situation, maybe you could use the word when you hear screaming, don't worry. But in most cases, if is probably a better choice here. Let's look at another one. Let's get a beer, blah, blah, blah. The plane lands. So this sentence, the nuance here is the speaker is on a plane, riding on a plane in the air right now. Because I have the verb lands. Lands means to touch the land, to stop flying. So here, let's get a beer if or when. If sounds like there's only a chance the plane is going to land. When sounds like there's a 100% chance the plane is going to land. So it's probably a better choice to use when here. We know the plane is going to land, unless it's an extreme case like a plane crash. Hopefully not. But let's get a beer when the plane lands is a better choice for this sentence. Okay, next one, blah, blah, blah. He gets fired for this. He's going to be in trouble. So if we use when here, by the way, fired means lose your job, lose your job. So when he gets fired for this, sounds like the speaker knows he, this person, is going to lose his job here. However, if we use if,
sounds like there's only a chance, or the speaker does not know whether or not he is going to lose his job. So if is probably a better choice here. Of course, if the speaker somehow knows information, they could use the word when in this case, but it's probably better to use if to show there's only a chance that this person could get fired for this situation. Okay, let's look at one more. She said she would text me when or if she had time to get together. This is a situation where both if and when are possible. So we can use if and we can use when here. The nuance though, she will text me if she has time. So if she has time means there's only a chance she has time, in other words. If we use when, she, in this sentence, she expects she is going to have time in the future. She said she would text me when she had time, when she had time. So meaning she expects to have time and she's going to text the listener. If, however, the sentence is if, she said she would text me if she had time, means she, in the sentence, this person, she means there's only a chance she'll have time. So please be careful. Sometimes both if and when are correct, but the nuance is a little bit different. So please keep sentences like these in mind. Sometimes, especially in a sentence like the first example we looked at, we can potentially really damage relationships if we make a mistake between if and when. So please consider this. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.